Has your marketing gone bitter or sour? Sit back and enjoy top shelf strategies from the Search Bar, now in season 2, where we're serving up fresh perspectives to help your digital marketing thrive. I'm your host, Eric Ritter, the SEO sommelier and CEO of Digital Neighbor, your friendly neighborhood marketing agency based right here in sunny Tampa, Florida. Today, we're exploring the dynamic world of social media marketing, a crucial ingredient in any successful marketing strategy. I'm thrilled to welcome our guest, Hannah Pearson, a sales and marketing strategist at GrowGetters. Hannah brings a wealth of expertise and insights, and I can't wait for her to share her perspective with everyone. And don't worry, if you miss anything, we've got you covered here. I'll post a downloadable social media marketing checklist on my site, and you'll find the link in the show notes. So let's dive in. Welcome, Hannah. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm excited. We work together on a professional level in social media, and just really enjoy your insights that you share with the clients, your attention to detail, the care and the strategy and everything. And so I think all our listeners are going to get to learn all that and take so much with them from this episode.
Awesome. Yeah, I really hope so.
I know it. Don't worry. So starting off, let's kind of set the foundation here by talking about, what really is the definition of social media marketing and why does it matter?
Yeah, so I really think that social media, it's become more of a place of entertainment and more of a place of community. So I really think that social media marketing is just really all in all a community, and it's a way for brands to build more awareness, build more trust and credibility, and establish stronger relationships.
Couldn't agree more, right? It's the democratization of media, right? Instead of one-on-one, you can talk one-to-many, but also with that comes the danger is that you are not creating connections with people. And we'll get into that a little bit from a strategy standpoint because, like you said, social media really puts your brand in front of customers where they're already spending their time, right? From what I've seen professionally, it's a cost-effective way to build awareness, get that trust, and even drive whatever your business goals are, conversion, sales, et cetera, by having those conversations with people.
Yeah, I think that's the amazing part of it is that social media is a free tool that anybody can use. It's a way to really get your voice out and for people to show themselves and be more authentic and just kind of have a voice.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. So any business should be doing social media, right? Because it's not two brands or two logos doing business, it's two humans, right? Yeah. And they're not sitting across from each other. They're looking at one screen, I'm looking at a screen, you're looking at a screen, and we're still able to connect and see, hey, our values align. We have a lot in common. I want to do business with them.
Yeah. I definitely think that, you would probably know this better than I would, but I think that social media has almost become the new form of a website. People look at the website, but then they also look at the social media. What are they doing? Are they active? Just so they can get a better idea of who the business is, like how, what their values are, how they operate, how they work with clients or the products that they sell. And things like
it's almost
that.
like looking behind the scenes, right? Yeah. So for me, kind of as a website guy, when I talk to clients is, you have the social icons on your website. People are going to click those as social proof. That's in the phrasing, right? So people want social validation, social proof, and they get that by going to your social profiles. And it's also a way for you as a business, as an individual, as a brand, to kind of let someone peek behind a curtain and kind of let your everyday guard down a little bit and kind of let loose. Where on your website, a lot of times it's all business. Yeah. And on social media, you have the opportunity to kind of show your personality.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the power, too, of the different social media platforms that there are is like they all kind of serve a different purpose. They all have different styles and different formats where the content is different. So for example, like TikTok, it's a little bit more authentic and you can be a little bit less polished and just kind of come off more fun and inviting. Whereas maybe Instagram, it's a little bit more, polished and professional and more of a visual place. So I think that's also kind of the power of the different platforms.
You brought up so many good things there. And I think we'll go down that a little bit later, especially in the checklist, right? It's almost like, I'm dating myself here, but like when you would have to pick what publication or what channel your ad was on. Like, am I going to be in the Wall Street Journal or am I going to be in the New York Times? Because they're very different, or USA Today or whatever it might be. And so to your point, that's different audiences and also different ways of engaging. If someone's reading one newspaper, they're expecting an article and ad like this. If they're reading a different newspaper, if they want to see maybe more visuals, less visuals, right. Same thing, like you said, TikTok versus Instagram, or dare we even say like whatever Twitter X is calling themselves this day, right? Where it's just basically text, where you get the updates like that. Well, I want to talk about paid social media ads, right? So I get that question a lot. I'm sure you do as well. Should a business invest in paid social media ads?
I would say yes, but I think it's very important to be intentional about what the business does, who their ideal client is. I mean, of course, that's with any marketing strategy, but I think specifically with paid ads, depending on what their goals are, I think sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. No, I couldn't agree more. And I think that it depends really, to your point, on your goals. But also one big thing to keep in mind is organic reach continues to decrease, right? So I don't know what the statistics are, but it's a single digit percentage of your followers on Facebook actually see your posts. So if you want people to see your posts on Facebook, you're going to have to put money behind it for it to show up, right? And for me, when I work with clients, let's say on SEO, a lot of times we also say we can't just do SEO. We need to do PPC. It needs to go hand in hand, kind of that blended search, right? We have the ads, you have the organic. Different people want to see it different ways. People are going to interact with you in different capacities or expect different things from you depending on their search. And I think on social media, it's very similar that in order to make sure that your message is getting seen, you need to put money behind it. And also it allows more precise targeting, I feel like, because I'm a big fan of LinkedIn ads, just to kind of name one of the paid social media channels. Is because LinkedIn allows you to target those decision makers you're looking for. Because that's what really marketing is at the end of the day. It's finding that decision maker and showing them your message at the right time with, showing them the right message at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that's, also part of like just the platforms and how they operate. That's how they make money.
Of course,
obviously,
yeah.
There's kind of that. But I have seen even just in the past couple months, like doing organic versus doing paid. I think that the organic is, as you said, it's starting to decrease. I think there's a lot of people that are trying to, be creators, trying to start posting more consistently. So there's a lot of noise. I still think there's a lot of benefit in doing organic social, but I think now it's more so a matter of what kind of value are we bringing to people versus just kind of posting random content.
100%. So a great example I like to give people is coming back to LinkedIn. As you can tell, it's probably my favorite social media right now, is if you're doing things like sending in-mail messages or showing people ads, that's great, but they're going to check out your personal profile.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to see, is Eric actually really a subject matter expert? Like he said in this message to me that he can help me with my business. Oh, look, he has all this organic content, all these videos, they're getting engagement, they're getting comments, they're getting likes. So you automatically have that authority and that credibility because you're doing such a great job on organic. And I think that's a great way organic and paid can really work together in the social media world.
Absolutely. And I think too that sometimes businesses and people that are trying to build their personal brands, they just need a starting point. And a lot of times it's very low budget at first. So doing organic a lot of times just makes sense. Yeah. But I think once you're at that point where you do have a little bit extra to invest, I do think paid makes sense.
Couldn't agree more. So the long answer short, should you invest in paid social media? Yes, with an asterisk. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's talk about trends to watch in social media marketing. They're always shifting rapidly. And I think staying ahead of the curve really can set your brand apart, right? So as some listeners might know, I'm an instructor, adjunct professor at USF. And so one of the things I talk about is kind of the technology marketing construct, how technology evolves and marketing follows, right? And those innovative marketers lead the path, right? So for example, when Snapchat started, probably everybody remembers that they didn't have ads, but they were really popular because they were really good at one thing, and that was making photos look great, right? That was the one thing that they did. They had the filters, they had augmented reality and everything else. And so, innovative marketers like Taco Bell, Starbucks, Red Bull got on there, and they didn't even need to run ads because their organic content was so popular. People would just follow them, right? So I think it's important to really stay on top of the new platform, kind of what those trends are. So are there any trends that you're seeing right now, Hannah, or that get you excited?
I think the biggest trend that I see right now is, maybe it's not more so a trend, but just kind of like a key factor, is just authenticity. I think that we're seeing a lot of emphasis on people being truthful in their content, people really showing up as they truly are. So yeah, I would say that's kind of a trend that we're starting to see is more appreciated.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm not going to out who I had coffee with yesterday. I had coffee with someone yesterday, and we're talking about social media and a little bit kind of that social media fatigue. Like, you see people, that are posting like their great vacations, their great houses, great cars. And he's a financial advisor, right? And so his response was, you know what? I've worked with plenty of people that are posting that, they really don't have any money. It's just all a facade, And so that goes into your point of just be authentic who you are. You don't need to create this persona, because if it gets found out, it's just going to hurt you in the long run.
Unfortunately, I have also seen that as well in, people that I've been connected with in the social media world, creators that are kind of emphasizing and placing a focus on this. I think it's a lot of the get rich quick and the overnight success, and, you can do it if you just do it like me. And I think that it's not very authentic, and it's just not showing the whole picture.
No, not at all. And it really is key, because, you see, especially the younger generations like Gen Z, the millennials, are really valuing that authenticity over that polished perfection, right? Because a lot of times you see how fake that is. One trend that has me excited also is social commerce. It's been around, but I think I want to, just talk about that, address that a little bit, because that's great for businesses. Is, Instagram, TikTok are mini e-commerce hubs. You addressed earlier that like social is becoming the new website, right? People are just going to social, not going to your website. Now they don't even have to, because they can just buy your thing directly on Instagram. I've done that myself. I think, again, it's marketing is finding that decision maker, whoever it is, with the right message at the right time. It's happened to me plenty of times on Instagram. I think my sunglasses had just broken or something like that, and I got an ad for sunglasses, and I looked at it. The social proof was there. Didn't leave Instagram, purchased it. It knew my information from my Meta Instagram account, just pulled my credit card, boom, and bought it. And it was from seeing the ad to checkout 5 minutes, right? And it was just so fast. And I find that so fascinating on social that you have those capabilities.
Absolutely. And I think it takes out the decision making out of it. So it's like, you want these glasses, here you do. Here's that. Yes, you do. Here's the option. Go ahead and buy it. It just kind of removes that decision making factor and makes it easier to buy. So it totally makes sense. I think it's very effective.
It's so true. You want to eliminate as many barriers as possible, right? So when you're coming back on LinkedIn, I promise I'm not getting paid by LinkedIn, but another plug here is I think Meta as well also has lead gen ads, where you run an ad and you say, hey, I'm interested, and it pulls your information, your name, your email address, everything else, and it submits that form for you directly in the platform. So you don't have to leave to go to a landing page or a website. And that's key, because you're keeping someone in that platform, right? Because it's so annoying. It's like as if I'm watching TV and all of a sudden, hey, sign up for this, log in now, right? That's an extra step. I have to go from the TV, scan a QR code to make it easier, but then I still have to do it on a separate device. Where here, it's not even on the same device, it's on the same platform, and I don't have to leave it, So it's a great thing you mentioned, Hannah. It's just eliminating as many barriers to purchase, to conversion, whatever that is, as possible. But what do you think of the rise of AI in social media? What are you seeing there?
Well, I have met quite a few people that have said that they've replaced their whole marketing with AI, and I think that's very, very scary.
Yes, it is.
I think that it kind of leaves that entire thing that we were talking about with authenticity, is there's no actual human connection there. And I do think that it's important to have that human perspective. But AI in terms of social media, I think with caption writing, it can be very useful.
Yeah.
But I do think that in terms of like photos and videos, the actual content that's going out there, I don't know that I've fully seen it work to its full potential. And I don't think it's really a great replacement yet for, what we do, content creators.
It's a big yet in there, right? Yeah. So we're seeing it constantly evolve. It's still a tool. It's a tool that's very helpful. when I started out and I was at a creative agency, the creatives would get together and they brainstorm, right? And they're like, hey, what do you think of this tagline? What do you think of that? And you're just throwing taglines back and forth. You can do that with ChatGPT now. It's almost like having a junior creative there.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this is the direction I'm thinking. Give me 5 more options. Boom, you get 5 more options. And it just kind of, I think, helps you get things done more effective and not, I don't know about effective, but definitely more efficiently, right?
Yeah.
But one thing I want to add is I was recently in a strategy session with a client, it's a construction client.
Okay.
And their social media agency had the idea, hey, we should do all these how-to blogs, right? Of like how to build this thing. And we're like, hey, that's a great idea. We've tried that, but we're recommending construction here. There's a lot of liability. There's a lot of very technical knowledge you need to have. So we really haven't been able to do that. And they're like, oh, just use ChatGPT. I'm like, okay, that's a great idea. But what happens with ChatGPT gives the wrong directions.
Yeah.
And we put that there and God forbid someone gets injured or dies or whatever, we're liable for that, right? So that's where ChatGPT, again, is a great tool, but you need to have that human element, especially if you're giving recommendations.
Oh, yes.
Right? Any kind of recommendations. I work with a lot of attorneys or lawyers, and they say ChatGPT is great for research, right? But you need to be careful because it doesn't know how to connect the dots. It could be a case that's not related, or could be giving legal advice that doesn't apply. It could be a different state, different statute, right? So again, it's a great tool, but you still need to have kind of that decision, that final decision made by a human to make sure that you're not giving false advice or even advice that can get you in trouble.
Yeah, that's a little scary, honestly. I've always used it, for somebody that does social media for a living. I think that it's a great way to jumpstart the creative process, just kind of like what you were mentioning earlier. It kind of helps us, as we already have that kind of creative mindset, but when we throw in an extra tool like, ChatGPT, then we're able to kind of even go further with those creative ideas.
Yeah, and what do you think of basically in the last year and a half, 2 years, every single app I open has added an AI feature? Right? It's just everywhere. And it can be super helpful. Like I use Asana for project management. And I can say, hey, summarize this task. Boom. It's great for summaries, but you can also get in trouble. Like, I don't know if you saw this, like Apple was getting in trouble because it uses the AI summaries for your notifications. And specifically the news ones were giving like bad summaries. And so there's actually, I don't know if it's a lawsuit or what it was, but they're changing it now because the BBC specifically was showing screenshots where the summary of the push notifications said that, I forget his last name and I apologize, the man who assassinated the United Healthcare CEO, Luigi something, right? And so basically the notification, and you can look this up, and the screenshot says Luigi killed himself in prison, which is not true at all, right? But that's somehow, it got a couple notifications, combined them together like that. So it's still, to your point, we're not there. Is it going to get smarter? Absolutely. Yeah. But it's just like, I'm a certain age. So I remember in school, the teacher saying, you can't trust everything you see on the internet. I'm sure your teacher said that as well, right? And that's so true. And we can just extend that. Don't trust everything you get from AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to kind of, get off on a tangent, but I do think that is, maybe one of the cons of social media is people are really taking it and seeing content and taking it as fact, but they're not really looking into more information. They're just kind of taking it as, oh, yep, this is true. This is exactly, what this person says. I believe it, but then they don't understand it.
Do we even want to get into Meta and Facebook taking away the safeguards? And now it's going to be community notes to, you know what I'm talking about, right? So for the listeners that don't know, so Meta Facebook has fact checkers, right? And so if there's a post made and it's factually incorrect or something very wrong, they'll take it down. So they're getting rid of that safeguard and saying now people can self-report and put community notes on posts to say, hey, this isn't correct, right? And I don't think we want to get into this podcast, and I just want to make the listeners aware, right, that that's something to pay attention to, right, is that there are shifting trends and shifting tides in social media. TikTok was shut down for 14 hours. And I was listening to a news podcast the next day, and they were talking to influencers that had 30 million followers. Yeah. And, this person literally said, I thought my life was over. I thought, I had to, that was it, because that was their entire income, their entire flow, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's maybe something that kind of goes along with the trends is to to follow a good old mantra, don't put all your eggs in one basket,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the really successful content creators I see, like Mr. Beast, right, is you leverage your social media power into something other where you can make money. You start selling products, you start selling swag, right? Of course, Mr. Beast now got a show on Amazon Prime, so good for him, right? So that's like the ultimate that you actually then make the crossover. But kind of, what do? You can maybe sell courses, or like I said, you can sell something tangible, some product or something, do a subscription service or something like that. But don't rely just on one thing, one platform. Don't be a one-trick pony.
Yeah, I think it was such a shock, the whole TikTok thing. And I think it really did put into perspective for all the creators that are making, their income and they're living off of the platform. Like, wait a second, if this goes down, which nobody has control over the social media platforms at the end of the day. So it is good to have, not your eggs all in one basket and kind of diversify.
Yeah. And I'm going to hijack just for a second and sidestep here is when it comes to websites, very similar is, there's different platforms. You have Squarespace, you have Wix, you have Webflow, you have WordPress. And I really want to emphasize for people that not on all the platforms do you own your content. So like if you have a WordPress website, you host it, you have to figure all that out. So you own all of that. But if you're paying someone else like a Squarespace or a Wix, you read the small print, you don't own all that content. They do because it's on their service, right? Same thing with social media. As great as it is having 30 million followers or on Facebook even, right? If Mark Zuckerberg says today, tomorrow, hey, all this is gone, there's nothing we can do. And that's why it's so important to plan around that of like, what do I actually own or not, right? And so that's why I think a holistic strategy is so important of like, we can't just do TikTok. We can't just do Instagram. That's why their websites are maybe still a good thing because you own that, right? It's not something that anybody can take away from you. An email list is great, right? Someone can't take that away from you. Cell phone numbers, right? Kind of building up your own databases, I think are so important in conjunction with social media.
I definitely agree. I think email is an incredible tool. I think a lot of people think that it's out, think that it's not as effective, but it's still one of the most effective tools that there are.
Absolutely. And I've been doing this for a long time, Hannah, and I can tell you the death of email has been proclaimed many times, and yet it still comes back. I still remember the first time it was declared dead because Facebook is here, and apparently colleges and universities were not there was one university, I think at least, that wasn't giving out emails anymore to students. They just used Facebook for everything, right? But that was probably like 15 years ago, let's say. And then all of a sudden what happened, you started getting email notifications from Facebook. Hey, you missed these notifications. Hey, you got these direct messages. Why does Facebook do that? Because they know you're always checking your email. And that's one way to bring you back, And so that was like the first time that happened, like, oh, email's dead. But then Facebook started using, and Twitter, same thing, now X, right? Sending you emails to come back to the platform because they know you're checking that. So that's a great point. Email is still so powerful.
I think too that there's so many generations that are used to using email marketing. And then it's like when you throw a new platform into the mix, for example, like TikTok, it's like, well, not everybody knows how to use TikTok. There's a lot of people from different generations that aren't really wanting to use the platform. So I think that email is still going to be around for that as well.
So you brought up a good thing, like with the different platforms. I want to dig into that a little bit more. Right. So it used to be, the mantra is I can create one post and post it everywhere. Right. I got a picture. I got a caption. Let me put that on Instagram. Let me put it on Facebook. Let me put it on LinkedIn. Let me put it on Twitter. But I can't do that anymore with TikTok. Right. So what's kind of your advice to businesses that want to kind of keep it as simple as possible, but want to make an impact with their target audience and might be on different platforms?
Sure. I think that it's good to obviously structure the content for the platform. Usually, like when we start working with a new client, we will do the same posts for every platform and then kind of figure out from there what's working and what's not working and kind of looking at your analytics and understanding your data and your audience and what they're liking. For some, TikTok actually has a feature now where you can do carousels. So you can do just photos. But obviously video is usually more effective. But I think it's a matter of just kind of understanding what content is performing best on each platform and kind of pivoting from there. I think it's good to kind of keep a general theme to the posts. Obviously, you don't want to be posting about something entirely different. Right. But just for example, I had a client one time that I was working with. She had a consignment boutique. And basically on Facebook, we noticed that her audience really loved promotional content and they wanted to see what deals she had going on. They wanted to see what type of clothing she had on sale. But then Instagram, she noticed that her audience really loved behind the scenes and seeing kind of the visual of like what her day to day looked like. So I think that that's a perfect example of, different audiences will like different things. So it's just kind of a matter of.
So I want to talk about reaching the next generation. So I learned that January 1st, a new generation started, January 1st, 2025. I don't know if you're aware of its generation beta.
Oh, okay.
So the betas are now getting born. If you're born after January 1st, congratulations, you're part of Generation Beta.
Okay.
Who knows how we're going to reach Generation Beta, right? I don't think we can even guess for the next 10 to 15 years, have any idea what the heck they're going to be doing to consume content, right? Yeah. But I think we can talk about how to reach Gen Z, which is the next up and coming generation, right? And so I know it's a little bit of a different approach. We already talked about authenticity, right? Their expectations for brands are probably being transparent, really being socially conscious and engaging, which is the direction a lot of brands are going. But just curious kind of what your recommendations are maybe and thoughts on understanding and reaching Generation Z.
Well, I think that Generation Z, and I'm Generation Z. So I think that kind of from
we have a subject matter expert in the house.
Well, from that perspective, I'm a little bit of like the later side, older side. But for me, I use Instagram. And I think there's a good percentage of Gen Z that is still like, that's the platform that they love and that they use. I think everyone's different.
Sure.
But I do think Instagram and TikTok, I think both of those platforms are still very effective. I think that just going back to authenticity, I think that we're a generation where we like to research everything. And I think that, going back to some of the older generations, like we didn't have as much resources available. I mean, not that we didn't have resources, but we have so much access to so much information.
So let me ask you a sidebar question. Yeah. Just because I saw this on Reddit the other day from like the subreddit. Do you know what Encarta is, Microsoft Encarta?
No. Mm-mm.
So Microsoft Encarta was in the late 90s, which was a CD-ROM that came with your computer, and it was basically like Encyclopedia Britannica for your computer. And because the internet wasn't there, right, the computer was not connected to the internet, if people can believe that, right, just sat in your house and you put a CD into it and have programs on there. And so it's just reminiscing of the days, to your point. It's like my research was on a CD-ROM that was maybe burnt a year or two ago, so it wasn't up to date. It was very limited. So that was how much research I could do, where now everything's at your fingertips, right? And you are always connected. So sorry, I just wanted to share that little tidbit there.
Yeah. But I definitely think that is just something to keep in mind as, a brand, as a business, that, when you're putting content out there, that you are being very intentional, that you're being honest.
Yeah.
And that, you fact check everything. Right.
I mean, and people do that, right? I forget exactly who it was, what office he was running for, but it was someone in New Jersey, right? And I forget if he's running for senator or governor. And he put up his Spotify Wrapped. And his Spotify Wrapped had all Bruce Springsteen, right? New Jersey's favorite son. And he was running for office in New Jersey. But it was a story. People looked at the story, downloaded it, whatever, and analyzed it and saw that the margins and the fonts were a little off. And they're like, wait a minute, this is Photoshopped. This wasn't actually Spotify Wrapped. So he got caught. And then it was funny. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I had my staff edit it because my kids use my Spotify account. So all their music was on there. But to your point, if he had just owned that up front, like, hey, this is what my Spotify Wrapped should look like, right? Yeah. It's very simple versus trying to give somebody something fake because they're going to figure that out, right? As perfect as you try to fake it, they're still going to figure that out, right? And they're going to do the research, if you really are a socially conscious, organization, right? If you say you give back to the community, you really give back to the community. So that's such a great point, that people can figure everything out. So just don't even risk it, right? Just be authentic there. You also mentioned at the very beginning, social media really is the crossroads of education, entertainment. So edutainment, I think, is a term that I've heard. And I think that works really well with Gen Z, and I think that's why like TikTok, et cetera, does so well is, for me, I'm not afraid to sit down with a newspaper, the New York Times on a Sunday and kind of work through the articles. But for Gen Z, that's intimidating, right? Yeah. They want to see a 30-minute clip of someone, make some funny jokes about it, but then tie it together at the end and you learn something, And that's, I think, is an opportunity for brands. If you know your stuff, if you're a subject matter expert, right? Coming back to attorneys again, if you're an intellectual property attorney, that's not such a fun topic. It seems super boring, but I'm sure you could combine that with some trends. You could combine it with whatever the latest dance is and just say, hey, this dance I just did, you could patent that or just kind of like make it educational with the entertainment. And I think that's a huge opportunity.
That's a very creative way to look at it. I mean, I have met a couple attorneys that have done very well from social media and been able to generate more clients from it. I think it's good to be, as we said earlier, intentional and making sure that, okay, does this TikTok dance really make me look like a professional attorney? But, just to be intentional with, does this trend align with this brand and the business and our mission and our goals? Because I think sometimes brands and businesses can get a little bit ahead of themselves with the trends and it just won't always make sense for the brand. So I think, that's something to know as well.
Yeah, it's like almost a double-edged sword, right? So you might have short-term gain of like, oh, look, I got a bunch of likes. But then when someone later looks at that and it's time to make a business decision, they're like, man, Eric did that weird karaoke thing that was on trend, but he can't sing. I'm not going to work with him, right? Yeah. So really being careful there, that you're not just chasing a trend to chase a trend as a business, as a brand, right? Especially if you're a professional. I think I couldn't agree more. There's a very fine line that you need to walk. And that's why you want to work with, a strategist or someone like yourself who understands what that line is and how to meet your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And something to kind of, piggyback off what we were talking about earlier with the short form content, I do think that, we're at an age where we can order something on our phone with a click of a button, it'll be there tomorrow. Yeah. And that's kind of the same mentality that people are getting with social media content. It's like, well, I don't want to read this super long post. I just want to see a video that's, 10 seconds, 30 seconds long and, get to the point already.
Yeah, because we're all busy, right? Yeah. And we all want to, kind of do something on our phone that's where most people consume social media, right? It's on our phone, right? On our phones, that's not going to bore us, right? Because life is boring enough probably. And people are used to having continuous inputs, right? And kind of standing out in that clutter in a way that is professional and that connects with people, I think is really the end all be all.
And something too that I'm curious to hear your input is, what do you think about social media and the consumption of social media? I do think that, that's something that we might see a little bit later on is people getting to the point of consuming too much social media. Yeah. And, I know now there's timers that you can put on the apps.
Yes.
You can put on 30-minute, however long you want to. But I think that it's not really something that's talked about that much.
It's not. And I mean, like I mentioned earlier, when I had breakfast yesterday with a friend who's a financial advisor, we kind of got into that a little bit. And that's where I shared, like, look at all these people and all the money they have from this. And he's like, well, it's not really like that, right? It's just for show. Yeah. And I think that's kind of in parallel to what you talked about, just the time consumption, but also how it makes us feel about ourselves, right, on social media. So I think what you need to do as an individual is really draw hard lines, right? And really, if someone is, you're following and they're, making you upset, anxious, envious, right? Envy is a good word there, is just unfollow them. There's no reason to follow them. Follow people that add to your life, that make it more positive, that help you grow. That's who you want to follow, right? And that's full circle is your social media strategy should enrich people's lives.
Yeah.
should make it better, right? So like I mentioned earlier with the construction brand, right? You want to make their lives better when they're in that situation they need to do construction. Yeah. How do you make it easier for them? How do you make it more fun for them, right? But the time we spend on social media, I think I'm not so much worried about how much time it is, but what you're doing in that time. If you're just like, everybody knows the term now, doom scrolling, and you're just going and going, that can be okay. If let's say you worked for a 10-hour day and I just need a break. I need no nutritional value in this. I just need to doom scroll. Yeah. I think that can be okay. Yeah. But if that takes over, your lunch break and you're doom scrolling for an hour and then all of a sudden, boom, it's 2:00 and you were supposed to work, then you have a problem, right? Then there's something wrong. So I think it's more about the quality of the time you spent versus just the quantity of it there. So it's a really good question, Hannah. And I think the apps are realizing that and kind of putting in the timers, especially for kids. You want to train them, because like I said, I had to put a CD in my computer to see anything, right? So it's a very intentional project. And my parents could just unplug it, take the cord away, and I would have no computer. Right. You can't do that nowadays, right? Yeah. Nowadays, you're connected 24/7. Right. So I think that education and that instilling that responsibility early on in kids is so important.
Absolutely. And I think it goes even beyond social media. Like, what content are you consuming? What podcasts are you listening to? Are you listening to true crime? And then you're always, having anxiety.
Right. I was paranoid.
Exactly. So I think that, it's always important to be intentional about what you're consuming.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, let's talk about what people are consuming on social media. We put together a checklist. And we have 9 things that can help people with their social media strategy. And this is really important for people to pay attention. You guys missed a great conversation if you hadn't been listening till now, but now it's a really important time to pay attention. We have 9 different actionable strategies for you to implement, but don't worry, we'll put them on the show notes for you to download afterwards as well, but we're going to walk you through them here. We're starting off with any strategy. If it's social media, SEO, PPC, whatever that tactic is, you want to set SMART goals, right? And what are SMART goals? SMART goals, that stands for that they're specific goals, they're measurable goals, they're achievable, they're relevant, and they're time-bound. What does that mean? They need to be clear, measurable objectives, right? So you don't want to just say, hey, I want to increase followers, right? That's great, but how and what time, how many followers do you want to gain to what goal, right? So I think that's probably what you start off with as well, probably with a new client, kind of wanting to understand what they want to achieve, right?
Sure, yeah. I think it's very important to understand, are we trying to generate leads from our campaigns? Are we trying to build more awareness, more trust? Are we just trying to get more engagement? Because I think all of those different elements can kind of affect the content that you put out in your strategy.
100%. And so what type of content you put out goes right into number 2, and we talked about it already today, is identifying your platforms, right? So once you have the goals, you need to understand who your audience is and understand what platforms will be most effective for you. So I mentioned LinkedIn a lot of times today. Why did I do that? Because I work with a lot of B2B business providers. Their audience is on LinkedIn. And so that's why you want to identify that right platform that will help you reach the right audience at the right time and tailor the format to the content so that way it performs there. Like you mentioned, you could maybe start out, with similar content on different platforms, but eventually you want to really understand what are people consuming on TikTok versus Instagram versus Snapchat. I don't know. There's so many platforms out there, Instagram, right? I think setting those goals and then identifying the platforms so you know what content you need to create, right?
Right, absolutely. And just knowing where your audience is spending their time, and then you'll be able to craft and structure the content better.
All right, number 3 is leveraging video content. So that's a separate bullet point because I can't emphasize that enough. You are not active on social media if you're not posting video, period. Video remains the king of all social media. If it's short form, short videos, TikToks and Instagram Reels, I think are so important.
There's so much more that you can get in a video, even in a 10-second video, than you can get writing multiple paragraphs. I think that video is so visual, and it's a way to really send clear messaging. It's a way to just showcase so many different things. There's so many opportunities you can take with video.
Yeah. And it's sometimes, we've both probably heard these apprehensions when you're working with a client, like let's say a professional service, like an attorney, right? Like, oh, I don't want to record videos for this. And then my response is, well, do you want to generate business? Do you want to get potential new clients? You want people contacting you? You do, then you have to do video. It's really non-optional. And there's separate strategies to do that. Maybe that'll be a follow-up podcast where we talk about how to do videos in specific niches because, it's so easy to do a video as an attorney. You just need to know kind of what people want to get out of that video and then record it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So we're at number 4 here, where now we're in measurement, about measuring it. And so you want to use analytics to guide your strategy. You mentioned that, Hannah, when you start working with a new client, you're tracking that performance and then you're adjusting the strategy based on that data insights. Like some messaging might work better on, you mentioned Meta versus somewhere else, and you do that through analytics, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can kind of share with you a perfect example of this. So I've been working on, my personal brand content, and I noticed at first I was kind of just posting what I enjoy because it's my personal brand.
Right.
And I was getting a lot more reach because I was posting videos and I was being consistent, but I wasn't actually providing much value, even from a personal brand standpoint. So I had to hone into, okay, what kind of value can I bring to the table with this personal brand? And then from there, I started seeing better results. So I do think that, analyzing your analytics, seeing how much reach you're getting, seeing how much engagement you're getting. If you're getting a lot of reach, but you're not really seeing followers, then that's a good indication that there's a disconnect there, that you're missing something, that maybe you're not putting out the right content your audience wants to see, or maybe there's no value, there's no really anything for them to hold on to.
Right. That's so true. And all that is tied again with analytics, right? And it's not just on social media, it's everywhere else. No matter what you're doing, you need to make sure you're measuring because you need to have that data integrity so that way you can then make data-based decisions. Mm-hmm. So number 5 here is don't be afraid to experiment and then adapt, right? So it's always evolving. So what worked last year might not work today. I remember on Instagram, it was just one photo. Then all of a sudden, hey, it needs to be a carousel. Then all of a sudden it needs to be a reel. And now it needs to be a story. So who knows what's going to be next, kind of what's going to work on the platforms.
Absolutely. I think it's really just kind of staying in tune with the trends that are going on. And unfortunately, this is a part of my job that I would say is maybe one of my least favorite, but you have to kind of be involved in the platforms. You got to see what other people are doing, not in a sense to copy them, but to understand what people are interested in right now, what's working for other businesses that are in your industry. How can you do it better?
Yeah, no, I love it. So that's so important, is being part of that and experiment yourself and then adapting based on that. So let's get to number 6. Number 6, very straightforward. Build a content calendar, right? Don't just figure out, oh, today's Monday, I need to post, right? Think about it ahead of time. Stay organized. Be consistent with a content calendar and keep yourself accountable that way. So that way you are being consistent. And not only does that keep you organized, also on the platforms, you need to be consistently posting in order to get any engagement, right?
Absolutely. I would say at the very least 3 posts a week. And I have found...
And that's for all platforms?
Yeah.
Okay.
TikTok, there's a lot of people that say 3 times a day. And if you do 3 times a day, in my opinion, I don't
Feels like a lot.
Well, it is a lot.
Yeah.
But I just think that you're going to end up putting out content that is not good.
And subpar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So why do that? Why waste all of that time? I think better to do a little bit less posts a week, maybe if it's 4, whatever time you have available, but focus on quality and focus on, providing the value.
Agreed. No, absolutely. Quality over quantity, right? Because your followers or people are going to see that and like, oh, Hannah's quality isn't as great as it used to be. Let me unfollow and let me see if there's someone else better out there. It makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always tell clients or like DIY clients, people that are trying to do it themselves, set a day for scheduling and creating your content, because if you don't schedule it, then you're just going to get sidetracked and you're going to forget, and then it's going to be pushed off and you won't be as consistent. But if you set a day that's going to be your day where you create the content and schedule it out, you'll have much better success.
Let's get to number 8 here. Invest in paid ads strategically. So we talked about it earlier. We're seeing declines in organic reach. That's nothing new. So paid ads really can give you more visibility as needed. But again, I said strategically. Don't just boost random posts. Don't just do ads to do them, but go through what are those SMART goals? What are you trying to do? And how can paid ads help you achieve those goals?
Absolutely. And you would probably maybe know this better than I would, but I have heard that specifically when it comes to paid ads, that utilizing some of your organic content, like if you have a post that goes, that performs really well and you get a lot of engagement, a lot of reach, you can utilize that content for those paid ads.
100%, right? So the advertiser in me says, well, listen, every ad needs to have a call to action. Every ad needs to tell someone to do something, but maybe you don't. If it's reaching people organically already, people are going to engage with it. It's the right message for the right people. Now you just need to hit them at the right time by not necessarily boosting it, but putting money behind it and then getting it in front of people. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's almost like testing it, right? Like we said, experiment, see what works organically. Boom, this one got a lot more reach and a lot more likes. Let's put some money behind it to show it to my target audience even more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And last but not least, number 9, stay ahead of trends. We talked about it, some of our favorite trends here. The social media is always changing, so stay updated on what's working now. Beyond being in the platforms, Hannah, and kind of figuring out for yourself, is there any other tips you have on how people at home can stay ahead of trends?
I would say just kind of, and I'm not saying focus on controversial topics, but focusing on topics that are current, that are happening in our day-to-day life. For example, AI is a whole thing. That's a whole trend, right?
Yeah.
But, you can lean into content about AI, things like that, just kind of staying up to date on what's going on in the day-to-day world. Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more. Maybe we can even ask ChatGPT what trends are happening, right? Use the AI to learn more.
Exactly.
Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. Hannah, I had such a blast today. I learned so much. I hope the listeners at home learned a lot as well. Thank you so much for being my guest today. Couldn't have had a better guest to talk about social media, so thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
And to the listeners, watchers here on the podcast, thank you so much for joining us at the Search Bar. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to connect with me and Hannah on LinkedIn to follow our journeys in all things digital media. You'll find both our profiles linked in the episode description. And if you have any questions about SEO or how to turn your website into a revenue-generating machine, don't hesitate to reach out. As the CEO of Digital Neighbor, I'm always excited to chat about digital strategies and help businesses grow. And before you go, I'd love if you could leave a review for the podcast. Your feedback not only helps me improve, but also keeps the conversation going. Plus, I promise to read your reviews in an upcoming episode and give a shout out to our amazing listeners. So I hope we filled your class with digital wisdom today, and I can't wait to have you join us on the next episode of The Search Bar. Cheers.